Hey there, lovely people. Today we're diving into a hot topic from one of my communities. How can we seamlessly connect applications to trigger actions without manual effort? Let's explore this together. When it comes to connecting two applications, many turn to tools like Zapier or Make for simplicity, but concerns about using third-party servers with sensitive data have led some to prefer self-hosted solutions such as N8N. But should we always rely on these services? I'm not so sure. Is there a time when third-party tools are unnecessary? I think so. That's the purpose of today's video. Today I'll show you that setting up a direct connection is not only possible, but simpler than you might think. Before we dive in, let's clarify two terms, APIs and webhooks. An API allows for two-way communication, sending and receiving data. That means if you send a request, you also expect a response in return. In contrast, a webhook is a one-way street, sending data without expecting a response, or as I like to call it, fire and forget. Our practical task is to create a WordPress post automatically when an event occurs in an external application. I'll demonstrate how to do this using webhooks without any external additional tools. So I've set up a plain vanilla WordPress installation for our test. I've installed a couple of plugins for convenience reasons, but they are not mandatory for this process. In fact, nothing is mandatory except WordPress. So now let's roll up our sleeves and code a webhook into WordPress, and we'll do this in under 50 lines of code and test it by using Postman as our external application dummy. Remember, security is key whenever you retrieve data from external users. So we'll touch some basics of sanitization and authentication, but it will be outside the scope of this video. Just keep in mind that any external user could also be a rogue one trying to send you some malicious code. So let's directly get into it. This is my current WordPress. It's the latest version as of today. And as you can see, the only plugins that are installed are the command line interface. That's just for convenience reasons because I usually log in via my enhanced server, and WP Codebox. You do not need necessarily WP Codebox. You can also add all the code into your functions PHP. They will do precisely the same job. I prefer WP Codebox because I usually do not work with themes. I use builders like Bricks. It's not installed here, but it's easier to move functions, PHP code and other code around if you have it in a separate instance rather than the theme. So what we're trying to add automatically is a post, and this is just the Hello World post, nothing else. It's a plain vanilla installation. So that's all what's installed here. And if we look at the front end, nothing added here. So there's one post, and the purpose is of this project is to add some more posts whenever they are added to an external application. I guess in the community discussion there was a CRM. There someone adds some new product data, and once that is done, the product data should also be populated onto the web page, which was powered by WordPress, and so that was the purpose of today's video. So this is what we will try to do. Our external application is not a CRM. Our external application is a dummy, and I use Postman. Postman is an online tool to test and work with APIs. There's nothing in here. I just created a new collection, and what we are going to do is adding a new request. This is what we do. This is our dummy. Just call it a dummy request. Oh no, let's call it a webhook request, because that's what we're doing. Webhook request. It doesn't matter. It's just the name of this one, so I can find it easier in the future. And what we're trying to do is, once something happens in this beautiful application here, it should trigger our instance of WordPress. And the current WordPress is installed at test1 little bigco.dev / we cannot use any endpoint. In fact, we didn't create an endpoint yet, but any endpoint that has been created in WordPress is created via the WordPress API. And the API lives in WP-JSON because it's a JSON API. And then we need a namespace. Let's call the namespace little big training dash, what do you want to call that? The endpoint is then the webhook. Something like that. If I now run this request, the expected result will be a 404 because this does not yet exist. But let's just try that. Sending a request, 404 not found. No route was found matching the URL and request method. The request method is the one that is added in front of the URL here. That's the get method. We can use get, post, put, patch, delete, head, and options. Today we're just focusing on get. That usually means you want to get something from an API or you want to post something to an API. It doesn't matter what method you use because the endpoint still does not exist. So we also get a 404 with the post method. But that's what we are about to change now. So let's see how we can do that. What we need is a REST route, right? So let's create a REST route. Register REST route. I show you what I mean. So it's in WordPress, register REST route. There you have it. That's a built-in WordPress function, and it registers a REST API route. It does not need to be an API. It can also be just a webhook. So the only differentiation is whether we are sending a response or not. That's all. That's the only differentiation between the API and a webhook. The idea is that the external application just sends out data but does not expect anything in return. So they're just sending out the data once something has been added, and our job is to catch that data and create a beautiful post from it. That's what we're doing today. Well, maybe not beautiful, but we will create a post. So we can just usually there's an example that you can simply copy, like this one. This one. We just copy this, bring it over to our function, and this is what we're going to do. Add an action, REST API init. This is a REST API init. It's a hook. That's a WordPress hook. WordPress provides this hook, and we are going to hook into that one to add our own function. And we just rename this function. Let's rename this LBC, since I always name them that way to give them some namespace. Register webhook. Webhook, right? So, and then of course our function needs to be called in the same way, otherwise it won't work. So this is a rather complicated one, right? It also contains some regex. We do not need regex here, but you can see they can do all those fancy stuff. And the idea was to call it Webhook, right? That's what we wanted to call Webhook. And the other one is Little Big Training. That is the namespace. So let's give it a namespace. Namespace and an endpoint. And then for the methods, I would like to see not just get, but also put, post. And if we want to hand over two different ones, then we need to add that into an array. Get post. So then our callback data is LBC under create post. And then there's something which is not in here yet. So we need to add this. This is the permission callback. And the permission callback is a new addition since WordPress 5.5, I guess. That checks permissions within WordPress. And if it's not available, if we miss that, if it's missing, or if the permission is not given, then this whole route will not be registered. That's a security measure. And we will create LBC permission. Let's call this callback. This is the function we call. Function LBC under permission. So I don't think we need anything in here. Do we need something? Not quite sure. Each time I record my screen, it prevents me from creating curly brackets for whatever reason, and we just return true. So we do not do any checks here because this will be a public one, and since it's a public one and everyone should have access to this endpoint, we do not need to do any permission checks, but it's a mandatory parameter, and without that the route wouldn't be created. So that should work. I think that's it. So let's save this. Enable this. Let's have a look. Let's have a look on the front page. Oh, that's the wrong one, this one. Sometimes it might be necessary if you create a new route, then you might need to resave the permalinks, because this now creates a new permalink, in fact. So untitled, let's call this untitled, let's call this Webhook training. Save again. So now if we just do a get, if we just get this webhook, then now we should see something else. Internal server error. That might be due to get and post. That's right. Callback, LBC create. We do not have a function LBC create post. Create post. This does not need to do anything yet. It just needs to be there. So let's try this again. There we go. Now the endpoint is available. It gives us a 200. 200 is an OK statement, so that's now working. So that endpoint is now available. And what we just did is say we registered a webhook, including the permissions. And now we need to do something with our webhook. So now this is the one where the juice comes into. So let's see if we create the post. Maybe we want to do something with the data that is being sent to this post. We do not want to create the same post again and again. We just want to take the data that has been sent to this endpoint. And in order to do so, we use the REST, it's called WP REST request. I guess that's the one it's called, request. So what we're doing here is we are handing over the request in form of a WP REST request that is sent to WordPress, and we hand it over to our function. And now we can do some fancy stuff with this request. Let's first return a response. We do not need to do that, but in order to check whether everything is working correctly, it's easier to return something. If, on the other hand, there's just a trigger for a webhook, it would not listen for this response, but for us, it's easier to have this response so that we can check everything is working as expected. So, and the response is something like new WP response. Is that correct? And it's an object of a response. Now we send it's a REST. It's called REST. So REST, like this one, REST response, REST request and REST response. So that's what we are going to do here. And we need to add some data into this response. Let's give us a status where we can say, the status, where we can say the status is, first of all, it's okay. And we have some text, some response text where we can say this has worked. This worked. Okay. So that's it. Let's check this. WordPress REST response. It's a class. I have an example here. No, not really. No response body. 303 is the, okay, looks good. Response. Oh. What we're giving back is an array. Yep. So we're giving just back an array. Let's format this. So this now looks better. Save it. There we have it. So this is our response. So now we get some details back. And the next step would be We would like to see that not everyone can send something to that webhook. We just want to get the post, not the get. So let's first figure out what the request really is. In this case, let's just check if the request, and the request is an object, and this object has a method which is called get methods. Get methods, I think it's called, right? So if that is a get, then let's define some new variables. Then the status is forbidden, and the response the response status, and we create a response text, where we say no getting around, please. So what's going on here? If the request so, and now we're just sending back the RS status, and this is the RS text. In other case, else this is then the, and we change the text here. So save this, no errors here. So now we're trying to get something to that endpoint, and we should receive an error. Oh, well, there is an error, but not the one that is expected, because it's a 500. Why is that? Request is get. I think get methods gets you all the methods. And we just want the method from this request, right? So let's try again. That looks good. No getting around, please. As you can see, this is still a 200. We will fix that later. But if we now post it, then we should get a 200. You know how to put it right. Whereas we are not putting, right? You know how to post. So just fix this. And what we can then do is just let this one, and we will add a response set method, set status, $RS status. So now we are setting the status on the response object. So we should have fixed this as well. If we go to, if we still using post. It's 200, that's working. If you use a get, now we should get a 403 here. Doesn't work. So might be just a typo. Yeah, because that is not a variable. It's a function. We have to hand it over to a function. So that's it. Perfect. Now it's forbidden. Now what we need is a post. And the beauty of the post is it can have a body. We can send some body text to this request, and we will simply put a JSON file here where we say it's a title, and the title is look ma, no user interface. And we also need some content. This post has been created outside of Word. Just write it correctly. Now that we are messing around with any copyright infringements here. This post has been created outside of WordPress. Period. So let's save that. Send. Nothing happened. At least we got our 200 response code again, but on this end, nothing happened because we do not yet create any posts. We just handled the webhook endpoint. So what we now need to do is anything with the code. So let's say we retrieve the body from the request. The body is our request, and we use get body. I think that's it, right? So request get body. Just let's check what we get here. Just send the body back. So we just throw the body back to our response so that we can see everything is handled correctly. Let's see what happens here. Title, content, that works. Everything correct. So now what we now do is, let's check this WordPress insert post WP underscore insert underscore post. This is a function that creates a post. And as you can see, we have we just need a post array that is necessary. Everything else is optional. This is what we are now using. We will use the post title, the post status, and the post content. Where's the content? Content, yeah. If the post parameter has ID set to value, then post will be updated. No, we will create a new one. You can set the post date manually by setting the values for post date and post date GMT keys. No, we just use the current one. You can close comments or open the comments by setting the, yeah, that's not what we need. We just want ID. However, we should use the author. So we have an example here. We can simply copy. This is what we use. As simple as possible. So my post. So we create an array. Just format it in a nicer way. So that's more beautiful. And there, where we have some sanitization, the WP strip all tags. This will strip all HTML tags from the title, and we are not using the post. What we are going to use is the body, and from the body we will use the title. That's how we called it, right? The title. Okay, that looks good. And for the content, we do the same almost. It's the body, and we use from the body the content. The post status will be published. The post author will be one. It's always, because it's external and nobody's logged into the system. This WordPress does not know who should create this post. And that's why we tell WordPress that it should post it for one. The current installation just has one author. That's me. And now that's all. I think that's it for the time being. So if we now go back, let's start with get. So we get something and have a body. However, the body will be ignored. Oh, there's something else. Let's just, instead of the body, let's give back the my post. That would be the ID. So post content is null. That's interesting. Oh yeah. Yeah, this should be part of this of the post. Otherwise, we do not want that, right? Save format. So I just put the it's my post. Okay. Nothing else yet happened. Because what we need is we need to insert it. 2 steps here. 2 steps. So now that should be it. So the function lbc create post first checks if the method is get or not get. If it's post, then we set the status to 200, set a message that everything is fine, set an array for the post, and insert the post into WordPress. So this time, once someone uses the post function, posts something, if we get something, then the response is null, because we did not yet define it. If we post it, oh, that's interesting. We might have missed something. Yes, we did. Because the body should be evaluated here as well. Otherwise, it's still empty. So now I guess I created a, where is it? Now I created a post, which is, no, it did not. Did not. Okay. Send it out again. It's still empty. Why is it still empty? Yeah, because we receive a JSON, but we need to decode it into a PHP object first. Otherwise, it can't be addressed with these arrows here. So, next one. Now it looks good. Now you can see the post title is Lookma, no UI. Post content is this post has been created outside of WordPress. Post status is published. Post author is 1. So if we now check the post, then there we have it. That's working. That looks good, right? If you look on the front end, then we should see watch, read, listen today by me in uncategorized. Yeah, that's it. That worked. That worked perfectly fine. As you just saw, the WP strip all text. This is one of the sanitization methods. You could also do some authentication checks here, while similar to the get method. You could also get the headers from the request, and if you can set an authentication header, for instance, in the sending application, then you can add this header to the request. And on the WordPress side, you can verify if that API key is the correct one. Could be either a fixed one, or you can check against other features, functions. You can go fancy as you want. So the most important part is that you should not use the data as is. We can also strip these tags from the body as well, and then I show you what that means. Let's try to put in some, not quite sure if we can add some HTML tags here. So this doesn't do any harm, but we will see what happened. Now we got two posts with the same name. But as you can see, there is no HTML tag anymore, right? Posts. That's the newest one. If you edit it, there is no, usually this outside should be strong, but it ain't. Because it has been stripped, it has been sanitized. We just want text in here. And this is what this WP strip all text do. You can also use some other sanitization features. If you look on WordPress sanitization, sanitizing data, and you can see sanitized text field where you want to update something, or you can sanitize email. You can check for emails in an email field. You can sanitize colors. You can sanitize MIME types, options, titles, the user, the URL, and a whole lot of other stuff. And you can even create your own custom sanitization functions if you want to. If you have some really complex applications for that. But yeah, there you have it. Right now we created a webhook in WordPress that reacts to external triggers, all within your control. No external parties are involved here, and no paid premium or whatsoever plugins have been used, except my WP codebox, but you can add it to the same code to your functions PHP as well. So I encourage you to use this as a foundation for your projects. If you have questions or need clarification, reach out to me. And until next time, keep exploring and learning. See you then. Cheers. Bye.